Welcome to Talking Jazz. My guest today is violinist and entrepreneur extraordinaire Cathy Morris. She's one of the Indianapolis staples since a long time, but also her influence goes far beyond that. So welcome, Cathy.
Hi, Monica. I'm so glad to be here.
So we'll talk about your music, and we actually will span like several decades going through all that good stuff. But I think before we dive into your first recording, actually in 92, you should give us a quick synopsis of where you come from and how you got into the violin and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, I am from Columbus, Indiana, and my father was a music teacher, a bass player as well, and he encouraged all of his 7 children to play music. I'm the youngest of 7. At 7 years old, got my first violin and just kind of hung on the coattails of everybody else in the family playing. He was a broad-minded musical person, so he conducted our local community orchestra, and we played everything from classical to Broadway. And he was a society bass player himself, society / jazz bass player himself. So he really encouraged me to keep an open heart and an open mind and try playing the violin in different ways, which was a very good idea because I was really not good at playing it the way it goes. I did major in classical violin at IU, but it was not easy because of my inconsistent playing, I'll put it that way. But I really did enjoy trying lots of different styles of music. Actually, I don't refer to myself as a jazz violinist at all. I've always referred to myself as an electric violinist. Oh, after college, I met a gentleman on guitar named Royce Campbell. I was really good at getting gigs. And so I talked him into playing. He tutored me in playing simply by sharing his original music with me. And I was just taken. I had never heard any music this beautiful. The melodies were so lyrical. So I found us more gigs. He gave me more music. And at the same time, I started freelancing in the Indianapolis area, doing recording sessions, and had a lot of influence through those, and started writing my own music as well. Very simple, but accessible sounding music. I think you have Sunshine Afternoon, the very first song I wrote. Usually there's some kind of symbolism behind my effort. And I wrote this song after had my daughter Brianna, and you can hear her name in the melody.
That's really, really, really cool. So that came out in 92. It was like your first album. And this is kind of the time when we got here and we got to know you too. So I remember that time. It was exciting because you could put your own music out. Finally you had the technology to make these CDs and
Right.
do all that.
Comes from pure bliss. I was so naive. Had I known any better, I would have never had the gumption or guts to do it. But I married a visual artist, and he enjoyed putting together the CD cover. And it was just all from the heart, and really a homage to my daughter, my family, my dad. And it just kept growing from there.
I know it was an exciting time, and you really had a first-class cast of musicians that you were able to surround yourself with, which is really cool. In Sunshine Afternoon, so we'll hear your daughter's name. What do you mean? How do we hear your daughter's name?
Well, the melody pretty much spells it out. I mean, her name is Brianna. I always wanted to do a video of this song, and I think you can visualize it as you hear it. It would be about an isolated playground when the song begins that has no children on it. Then the electric violin comes in with the 1-line melody, and that represented my Brianna getting on that playground. Then the rest of the band would kick in, and all of a sudden the playground is full of all kinds of children. And I always wanted to see all those children climbing all over the band as they were playing. And interestingly, coincidentally, I have a girlfriend all these years later who's a videographer who wants to bring that to pass. She wants to make that video with that song. after all these years.
I think that should absolutely happen. I can envision it. So here comes the playground and there comes the kid. So we should actually, I have to listen to that song with all these images for us right now.
Way back, I wrote a storyboard, drew out a storyboard and everything. And now 2022, we're going to do it.
That's amazing. And for anybody knowing the Indianapolis area, those are some great musicians that we have. So we have Royce Campbell, of course, on guitar, right. Gary Walters on the keyboard, David Murray is playing bass, Larry Sauer is playing drums, and Kevin Kaiser on percussion. And of course, Cathy Morris on electric violin. So here's Sunshine Afternoon from the 1992 Cathy Morris album. That was Sunshine Afternoon, featuring my guest today, Cathy Morris, on electric violin, who also composed the music and just let us know this image of being on the playground with all these kids and just having fun. And, you know, I think that's like the trademark of your music, just having fun and a good time. I remember early on in those years, I think we were playing some festival down in Fountain Square, and we had just finished and you guys came on, and you know, we always had the trouble of keeping like the same band together, and you finally have the drummer and the bass player, and then of course they can't do it or they move away and you have to restart again. And then you guys came on and it sounded so tight and so cool, and I was like, I want a band like that. That's the best thing.
And boy, you sure got your band like that. My goodness.
Well, I mean, at that time, it was just, that was just one of a really special moment for me. I remember that vividly. So I want you to talk a little bit about like keeping a band together and making it tight. I mean, that's ups and downs, and I'm sure you had all kinds of moments during those 90s trying to do that.
Most definitely. Look, you know, having been involved with the recording session industry that was going on up here, which was very prolific, I had access to these full-time session players, and all you had to do was dangle a gig and dangle some decent money in it, and you would get, you know, you get on their calendar. It was just that simple. I do remember fondly, I was having a hard time getting a bass player, and I had heard about this Steve Dokken, and of course Royce Campbell and Steve Dokken toured with Henry Mancini.
Right.
I mean, for years, for 20 years, each of them did that. And I had heard about this Steve Dokken, and I'd gone on a short tour to play for like Pia Zadora. I mean, somebody like that who hired an orchestra, and we all got on a bus and we'd do this week-long tour. And Steve was part of that tour. And that's when I first approached him. And I tell you, it was like asking somebody out on a date. Would you please maybe possibly consider maybe, you know, but bottom line, and he's been with me ever since. We're 30 years in now. But, you know, bottom line is every good business person surrounds themselves with the best and better than how you are, so that you can continue to grow and learn. And we just had the support of local radio DJ Chuck Workman and a couple other people who, the electric violin was so unique and different, and you know, that it just intrigued people, and the music was very positive, very happy, positive music, and that means it was very accessible. And so we just kept working that angle.
It was, you know, that whole crossover genre at that time. So you mentioned Chuck Workman, who ran, was it WTPI, and who ran this smooth jazz show. So it was just really popular at that time, and you hit the market right at the right time with the right stuff.
With the right instrument. With the right instrument, because I was barely able to improvise at the time. And you know, just, and always very self-conscious and concerned. So my focus was on the presentation almost more than the music. You know, I just wanted people to feel happy and have a good time, because it distracted them from my inabilities, or what I thought was my inabilities. And it, you know, and it just worked. There's just nothing else to say. And Royce Campbell original songs, all those albums are comprised of his original melodies and his beautiful chordal harmonic adventures that were just the epitome of smooth jazz.
So the Brazilian blues we're going to listen to, that's one of yours though, right?
Yeah, it is one of mine. And I tell you, I've since then written it for orchestra, string orchestra, as well as full orchestra. And I've had the privilege of performing it with orchestra. And yeah, it's a double time burning samba, baby.
And I would say you got some burning licks in there too. You know, those classical chops did pay off after all.
Not too bad, not too bad.
Not bad at all. So let's have a listen. So this is Brazilian Blues, and this is from your 95 album, On the Run. So again, featuring Royce Campbell and Gary Walters on keyboards. And interestingly enough, Jim Donica on bass, who later went on to go to New York. And we have Larry Sauer again on the drums and Kevin Kaiser on percussion. Brazilian Blues from the 1995 album On the Run with my guest today, Cathy Morris, on electric violin and also composition. And we talked about keeping bands together, and we were often exchanging personnel and playing together. I think it was a super, super creative time. But, something else that you really got into before, we're going to go to your 2002 album, Welcome to My World. And I want to kind of paint your world because it has so many colors. And one thing that you really got into was this educational realm and going to the schools. Tell us a little bit about that show that you do that I got to witness a few times.
Well, a girl needs to make a living, and the way to do that is to decentralize. And of course, my father was an educator, so it came pretty naturally to me. And together we had our family string quintet. That we embellished with friends as well. And so I auditioned for Arts for Learning all by myself, representing the eclectic array of styles you can play on a string instrument. They had no string representation at the time, so they invited us to participate. And my goodness, we were touring the state of Indiana. We would do a week in Kokomo and visit every single elementary school in Kokomo, Indiana, or, things such as that. We just developed shows that were entertaining. Well, I call it edutainment, and what were eclectic, that they really did span an array of styles that you're capable of playing on a string instrument. So then I eventually also included the electric band. At the time, it went by the name of Collage. We got to play even a broader scope of music on string instruments. And of course, I had, at that point, justified buying more electric violins. It was kind of a Pied Piper of a different kind of instrument that most people weren't acquainted with. I'm still with Arts for Learning. It's been 35 years.
That's a great thing, and it's so important because, what the kids get in those formative years, like those elementary school years, this is where you get this impression of things that are possible. And this is where you're going to decide, oh, I love this, or I love this, or I love this, and pursue it later. And if you don't see it, if you don't get it,
right,
you never find out.
It truly was really just about the exposure and exposing children and teachers. I'm sorry, but they were just as underexposed. And I know this feeling when years later, maybe even decades later, somebody comes up and says, oh, you came to my school when I was in first grade, or, as a matter of fact, I was talking with a gentleman the other day who said the first time he saw a violin was when I had come to his school, and he had never forgotten that. Not that he ever played, but he just never forgot that. My goodness, what a gift to know that you reached somebody's heartstrings.
Yeah, very cool. So this next one we're going to listen to, Think Fast, that's also one of your originals, right?
Yes, I thought we'd play all my originals practically.
Absolutely.
Royce Campbell, those songs are just amazing. And I even have one of your compositions on one of my CDs. And it's beautiful music. But the reason I chose Think Fast was to give an idea of my need for exploration. I really can't sit still. I really cannot stay within one genre or one style of music. It's imperative that I try them all. So this was my attempt at kind of an R&B funk kind of groove. I have Alan Turk Burke playing the B3 organ on here, and he used to be with the Spinners. So I was just taking advantage of anybody and everybody just to try to have the experience and have another style under my belt.
Absolutely. This one is groovy.
Well, I always hoped somebody would write words to it.
Well, let's put it out there, maybe.
I did it at a Christmas program, and a gentleman came in and did a spoken word, and it really lended itself very well to that. And truth be known, I did write words to it. I've just never shared them with anybody.
Now it's out. Now you will have to share. Well, let's go groove and have a dance party. So
go.
This is Think Fast by my guest today, Cathy Morris, who you will also hear on violin. And this is from her 2002 Welcome to My World album. And it features Alan Turk-Burke on the organ, Steve Dockin on the bass, Tony Medeiros on the drums, Charlie Smith on the guitar, who is one of our dear Indianapolis fellow musicians that we lost way too early. Gary Walters always should be there.
Well, he was a mainstay for the longest time, no doubt.
And Kevin Kaiser on percussion. So here's Think Fast. That was Think Fast, a selection by my guest today, Cathy Morris, also heard on the electric violin, from her 2002 Welcome to My World release. We're actually going to hear one more from that release, My Hubby on the Guitar here on Peter Kienle. Right. You know, we talked a lot about your regional work, but you went way beyond that. You know, I believe Barcelona was actually connected with a grant and you guys went to Japan. Give us a little synopsis of all your great adventures here.
Actually, the real story is it was back after the very first CD that we got invited to go to Japan. And that was through Royce Campbell, who had been touring Japan yearly, playing Henry Mancini songs. He played low guitar, Henry Mancini selections. And the producer that would bring him over was intrigued by the instrument, by the electric violin. So it was really that first release. It was after that first CD we got to go to Japan. Barcelona, I actually wrote, hoping to get to Spain. My gosh, it did finally happen. And you're right, it was through a grant that took me to Mallorca, Spain. It was there that I was able to play with a youth orchestra. A number of my selections at the Michael Douglas Auditorium in Mallorca. Yeah, that was just an amazing opportunity. I'm not the world traveler you are with your music, but yeah, Japan, Spain.
Well, and there's a few presidents you guys played for, right?
Oh, yes. We were able to represent Indianapolis for a number of visiting dignitaries, including Mikhail Gorbachev and President Clinton and the ambassador of Japan. You know, I think that instrument represented there was more than sax, more than corn in Indiana. You know, there was something contemporary and non-traditional and surprising. I've been very honored over the years. And, you know, I've seen myself on the Jumbotron at the Indianapolis 500 race and Formula One race opening for the Commodores. And all of those opportunities and privileges is what motivated my most recent project called Arts with a Purpose, which is a not-for-profit that actually promotes all artists of all disciplines and matches them to communities that don't have the arts available to them. But it's because of all those opportunities. I'll go to my grave giving back through Arts with a Purpose. No doubt. But yeah, Barcelona.
You know, and I think, you know, those opportunities, they're not just because it's a cool instrument, but, you know, you really have great showmanship and you have a great relationship to the audience. And the music just speaks to really a broad range. So it's all earned.
Thank you so much. I sure have loved doing it and continue to enjoy playing for audiences of all ages. It doesn't matter if it's President Clinton or if it's a kindergartner. I love it all the same. I truly do.
And knowing from my perspective, you always give all the same, no matter if it's the kindergartner or President Clinton. So.
Yes.
Well, let's have a listen. Let's take a trip to Barcelona. And this is also from the 2002 Welcome to My World release, but it actually features Peter Kienle on guitar in addition to your band with Steve Dokken on the bass and Tony Medeiros on the drums and Kevin Kaiser on percussion and Gary Walters on the keyboards. Here we go. Barcelona, a selection from the 2002 Welcome to My World release by my guest today, Cathy Morris. And yeah, I hope everybody kept dancing along here because we will go even more into dancing. And I remember that those early 2000s, you had this love affair with Brazilian music, and you actually got to work with a really great piano player that was, you know, part of that inspiration. And you started singing.
A little bit.
Oh, that sounds pretty good.
Oh, thanks. Yes, Roberto Monsalves.
Right.
And I took full advantage of him. Boy, I was stalking him practically. And again, you know, reeled him in with gigs. And actually, our local jazz kitchen invited us to, we had a steady gig there for about a year and a half.
That's right.
Playing jazz and other Latin tunes. I always wanted to be able to do things like arrange even kind of pop Latin songs, but that never really worked out so much. But I did become, I always say I had a sordid love affair with Brazilian jazz, and I did. I actually even have another Latin jazz CD on the docket that I'm hoping I can get out in 2022. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and you had some great collaborators on there. So of course, Roberto. Where was Roberto from? Tell us a little bit about the story.
Yeah, he was from Chile, but he had a sister that lived up in northern Indiana. And he would come frequently to accompany her representing Chilean, traditional Chilean music. And but he was such a great jazz player, he really opened up my ears to different approaches that I had never heard before. And I'll always be, you know, grateful to him for that, no doubt.
And then Gerardo
Becerra. Yeah, Gerardo Becerra.
Gerardo Becerra, I have to say it right, but he is in Indianapolis. He's one of our mainstays, right?
Right, he's a police officer here in Indianapolis, and an awesome player. He's really one of the main percussionists in town now. And yes, he too just added so much to my world. We just put together an ensemble that really clicked. We also had Cliff White came in and was singing a few of those more pop oriented songs, and he's sadly no longer with us as well. But yeah, we put together a really nice book of all Latin jazz. Tania Maria and oh my goodness, Eduardo Lubo, and I mean, just so many wonderful selections that I was not aware of. And I actually figured out how to sing a couple tunes in Portuguese. You know, with Latin jazz especially, it's not so much the quality of your voice, but it's the heart that people hear and need. And I was not on a shortage of that. I had a lot of heart. And I always speak like it's the past. I had, because these are past releases, but yeah, I still love Latin jazz. If I was on a desert island, it'd probably be Latin jazz I'd want with me.
You play that. And you know, it's always interesting to be careful, like with Latin jazz, meaning there's so many different styles, right, that it encompasses, you know, from the bossa and samba and the Brazilian traditions to more the Afro-Cuban traditions, and then, you know, each country has their own specialties.
Exactly. And that's why I actually I called it my Brazilian Lounge Band. Named that band when we first started. But then when we made a recording and when we got that steady gig at the Jazz Kitchen, it was suggested I just call it Latin jazz so that I wasn't limited. So I guess I appreciated that, but it was mostly Brazilian jazz.
Very cool. So we're gonna hear you on the vocals. I mean, that takes a lot. I haven't dared yet to do anything on vocals. Good for you.
Oh, I heard your Christmas song.
Those are accidental ones. So yay, this is Don't Go. Who actually wrote that?
Tanya Maria.
That's a Tanya Maria song.
Yeah.
So here's Don't Go from the Latin Jazz album, a
Right.
2006 release featuring my guest today, Cathy Morris on vocals and electric violin. And we'll hear Roberto Monsalve on the keyboards and Steve Dokken on the bass, Adam White on the drums, and Gerardo Becerra on the percussion, Frank Smith on the bass.
Yes, he not on this particular cut.
Ah.
Yes, I did have him on Fotografia, which is another very lovely tune. Aw, I'm gonna have to get this album back out.
Everybody should. It's just a really, really, really great album. So yeah, let's indulge. Don't Go from the Latin Jazz 2006 release featuring my guest today.
I may forget tomorrow, please don't go. I swear this time I will be sweeter one to you. Oh, make this night last 1,000 nights. Don't go, my lips are longing for a kiss. Your kiss, oh please don't go, don't go, don't go. Don't go.
That was Don't Go, a selection from Latin Jazz, a 2006 release by my guest today, Cathy Morris. And we're having a really great time just reminiscing and listening and talking about the music. And we got one more. It's from the holiday release, but you know, those are timeless and they come out every year for a certain amount of time. So, you know, one thing you're also doing, and we should talk about that some, is arranging and publishing for all kinds of ensembles and putting your music out in various ways. So tell us a little bit about that and this big mix of activities that you have now and maybe coming up.
Well, you know, I haven't written that many songs. I'm not a prolific writer. I think at one time I counted them and it was like 14, a whole 14 songs, which is not a lot, but I have exploited them like crazy. I've written for string orchestra because of my educational endeavors. I've written them for full orchestra. I've written them for jazz band, and especially the holiday tunes have really worked out. Now, do a lot of people know about these? No, I started out writing them for my own usage. You know, somebody asked me if I'd solo with their jazz band for Christmas. It's like, great, what an excuse. Let me write this arrangement of something off my own Christmas CD. And I have gotten a number of my selections published by FJH Music. And so they're out there. My little tune called By Yourself was a J.W. Pepper selection of the year even. So, you know, but it was a hoot and cute and had a cute title, By Yourself. It's a Cajun tune. And I'm really looking forward to this year because I'm finishing a compilation Latin suite that includes Barcelona that you heard, as well as Brazilian blues. And it's going to be a 7-movement suite that I'm going to play with the Columbus, Indiana Symphony. And this is very personal because my father conducted that orchestra and they are celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. So I'm going to go back home and play that with them and hopefully get it published through FJH as well. I'm going to hyper focus on arranging my entire Christmas CD for string orchestra, which is interesting because we recorded that CD in 1998. So what I love about our garden of music that we grow as composers is that we can keep reusing and make new recipes out of those old ingredients, if you will. And yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. And this is, you know, a very different arrangements of angels we have heard on high that you would expect.
Oh, yes. This is kind of, you know, all the recording I used to do at the session work. Some of it was up in Anderson, Indiana for the Gaither Studios. And the Gaither studios were very religious. And this is a praise gathering song if I ever heard one. I mean, this is a come to church kind of tune for angels we have heard on high. And we threw in a little bit of a Celtic interlude in there as well.
It's very fun. So every Christmas season, this should come out and be one of the regulars for everybody.
Oh,
so
thanks.
yeah, well, Cathy, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and sharing about your music.
Sure, I'd love to invite everybody to cathymorris.com, and I spell my name with the letter C. And keep in touch. I actually have a small blog on my website where I have interviewed other electric violinists. Jean Lupanti was my first interview. He and I share the same birthday even. And he, you know, we've kept in touch. So, you know, I'm inspired by you, Monika, and your ability to bring people together in your genre of music and styles, and especially women who deserve more acknowledgement, because like in every industry, we have to fight to get our voices heard. And, sometimes, well, I just won't even go there. Never mind.
We will get our voices heard, the angels will sing them.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I appreciate you hanging out with us, and look around town, go to cathymorris.com and you'll find lots of good stuff and playing in all kinds of places. So this is from the 1998 A Cathy Morris Christmas release, featuring Gary Walters on keyboards, also Charlie Smith on the guitar, Steve Dokken on bass, Phil Brines on drums, Gerardo Becerra on the percussion, and of course, Cathy Morris. And
can I tell you, there's also tin whistle player L.E. McCullough on this particular selection. He's awesome.
That's really cool. All right. Thanks again, and we'll take it out on Angels We Have Heard on High. thank you for listening to Talking Jazz today. My guest was violinist, educator, composer Cathy Morris. Tune in for Talking Jazz every Thursday at 11 a.m. and every Monday at 7 p.m. right here on WETF 105.7 FM in South Bend, Indiana, or online at WETFthejazzstation.org. Also find videos of previous shows on YouTube on the Monika Herzig channel. That's MonikaHerzig. Subscribe to get the newest updates. Thank you for listening.